This meeting is being recorded.
Can people hear me? Right. Oh my goodness, I'm losing it. Hello everybody, this is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of International Women's Month. Remember, I'm not saying day because the day's gone. International Women's Month, where we celebrate ourselves as women. And it shouldn't even be a month, you know, it should be all the time where people acknowledge us for what we do. But I suppose that we can't be on the platform every day. So we're using 1 month, every Wednesday, to celebrate ourselves and to highlight some of the things that we do as women, and also to remind people without women, there would be no world. And once we are happy, the whole world is happy. Plus, we also know how to balance our lives. And some women are saying, oh, they're just, you know, I've had this situation last week where one of my colleagues, a friend of mine said, oh, I'm just a housewife. No, we're just nothing. Because being a housewife involves so many different skills. You have to be able to be budgeting. You have to be able to also know that you need to take care of the house. Sorry, I'm not going to be one of these women who's going to be doing that. Sorry, I hate housework. I love it when the house is lovely and clean, but for me doing that every day, no, sir, sorry. And there's nothing wrong with me saying I hate it, but I love the house when it's clean. I need to have a choice, right? And I'm now exercising my right to say I'm not going to clean my house every day. I don't find the need for it. But some women are okay doing that. That's them. We need to support them for that, right? So it's a matter of celebrating who we are and celebrating what we want. It doesn't matter what society says we're supposed to be. No, it's about us, right? So welcome, welcome, welcome everybody. And thank you guys for accepting the offer to come online, to share our experiences of where we are as women, to celebrate ourselves as women, and to remember in terms of self-love and self-care, we have to give that to us. The same way we buy gifts for other people, we need to make sure we buy the gifts for ourselves. It's got to come from us first. And we need to tell people how we want them to treat us, right? So we need to make some decisions here. It's about us. It's not about being selfish either. It's about we celebrating ourselves and we telling people how we want them to treat us. And we need to just own that. Anyway, let me just introduce my lovely women. It's not me because people know I could chat. Well, let me just introduce my beautiful women so we could share the discussion. Right, Rebecca, would you like to introduce yourself? I don't introduce them. They're going to be introducing themselves, tell us where they come from and tell us what they do. And then when I've introduced everybody, we start going into the discussion.
Thank you, Debbie. I am Rebecca Stark. I am in the U.S. in North Carolina specifically. And I run a corporate training department. So I'm a talent development manager for different corporations. Currently the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And yeah, just a little bit about me. Did I miss any of the questions? Oh, so I think I covered it all, but in case you didn't hear, I'm Rebecca Stark. I'm based in the US in North Carolina, and I'm a talent development manager within corporations. Should we go in the same order? Should I pass it to Cynthia?
Yes, sorry, yes, please, yes, please. Yes, Cynthia.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invitation and for this opportunity. My name is Cynthia Blunt-Price McLean. I am a housewife. I am also a social media influencer and the co-founder of Widows to Windows, which is an organization that raises awareness for widows, especially suicide widows, because I am a suicide widow survivor. I am also currently a beauty pageant competitor. My current title is Mrs. New England Continental 2023. And it is a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Can we go in the same order that we are? Because me trying to unmute all the time.
I think I might have been next. My name is Adiola Adelakun. I'm based in Manchester in the UK. I am co-founder and director of a company called Cultureville. We make gorgeous African print clothing and accessories in West Africa. We work with women in the local community to create this gorgeous clothing, really talented women in Nigeria and Ghana specifically. And prior to this, I am a lawyer. I'm qualified in England, I'm qualified in Nigeria, and I'm also qualified in New York. I worked in corporate mergers and acquisitions for a while, and I realized I wanted to have more impact than I was in those organizations. And so now I work as a lawyer with small businesses and individuals, and also as a co-founder of my brand Cultureville. I think I'll pass it on to Aja. I'm not so sure. Yes.
It's Asia. You were right the first time. Hi, everyone. I go by Asia Vu. I am based in North Carolina currently, although I will be moving to Florida in just a few weeks. I am a holistic birth worker. I'm a full spectrum doula. I am a movement meditation guide. I teach deep healing through somatics. I'm also an artist. I was gonna say art teacher. I don't really teach art just yet, but I am an artist and eventually want to teach art. I'm also a freelance writer and a social media marketer. So I do all of the things. And my business is 8th House Happenings.
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Cynthia. Hi, I'm Cynthia, and I'm from the UK. I'm from a city, I should say, called Birmingham, and I own a hair salon, wig shop. And what I do is I help people with alopecia, people with cancer, feel amazed about themselves. When they feel like there's nowhere to go, I'm there to help them. Our hair is our crown, and we all, men and women, I'm not going to leave the men out. I know this is a women's group, but we all love hair, especially us women. We pride ourselves with our hair. As I said, our hair is our crown. And you could have a bad day about your clothes, but once your hair is done, that's it. You feel amazing all over. I'm also a network marketer as well. I've just joined a brand new company called Envision You. And what we do is we are a health and wealth platform. And what we are doing is we're impacting 1 billion people. And we are very, very much on our way there. So once again, we're helping women, feel better about themselves. So everything that I do, it follows on from each other. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Who is next? Adiola, did you go? The other Crystal, Margaret, did you go?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. My name is Dr. Margaret Barrow, and I am the CEO and founder of It's Nola. It's a plant-based snack company here in New York. What I do is I take granola and make it compact and chewy rather than crumbly and messy. And I also make sure that it's flavorful, because healthy food, if it's flavorful, more people would eat it. I am also a college professor. I teach writing and literature at the Borough of Manhattan Community College here in New York City. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And there's no need for me to introduce myself because my platform, I hope that you guys know me. Right, the first question I want to look at is the role institution. Did I introduce everybody? Yes? Oh, sorry. Who haven't been introduced?
Hi, my name is
Hi,
Alma.
my name's Alma.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Alma Oputa I'm from Imo State in Nigeria. I am currently managing partner at Avant-Garde Capital Limited. It's an investment firm, and we fund startup businesses, and we also give out loans to we also give out loans to businesses. I'm also a fashion designer. I have a fashion brand in Lagos, Nigeria, and we make bespoke traditional and English wears for both ladies and the men. An educator, currently run a school that empowers undeserved but very talented young girls for impactful leadership. It's nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
And my name is Crystal Chibu. I'm the founder of the Radio Foundation. I work with children who have been amputated either as a result of congenital issues or as a result of trauma, to give them prosthetic limbs to be able to go back to school. So that's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you. Has everybody's been introduced? I'm not taking chances now. Has everybody been introduced? Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. It's been fantastic meeting all of you and hearing some of the things that you do. I'm hearing about this fashion. I'm not seeing anybody putting up the picture that said, this is the fashion I do. But anyway, let me just leave that. Right. One of the things, as I said, there's a series of 3, 6, 8 questions. We get through as many as we can because it's about a dialogue. So one of the first questions I have is, what institutional and societal changes need to be made for women to be empowered? So what does society need to do, and what does the institution we all come from need to do in order for us to be empowered as women? Crystal, anyone at the Crystal? That's the name that came on the top of my head.
Okay, I'll just speak perspective. Like I said, I gave birth to my daughter with congenital limb deformity, and then Debbie, I think you need to meet. Thank you. So, and her leg had to be amputated. As a result of that, one of the things that is really big when it comes to disability in Africa, I live in Nigeria, by the way, and I'm Nigerian, is that there's so much discrimination and stigmatization against it. So nobody was really speaking up for me apart from my husband. You will hear people say, within the cultural community of, we don't have this in our family. This is not something that should be. And he almost looked at it was like it was my responsibility as the woman, and I was the one that did something wrong to give birth to a child with congenital deformity. This is not just with me, but with all the women that I have gotten to meet. So for me, I would think that one of the things that needs to happen within this institution is to ensure that we as women, we have a voice, and that it counts and it really does matter. And that's something that really needs to change, because when it comes to Africa and Nigeria specifically, as a woman, I'm traditionally Yoruba, and I got married to an Igbo woman. So I think that Alma, we understand this a little bit better. And you just realize that there's so much tension between both institutions, the Yoruba culture and the Igbo culture. And it was really tough for me as a woman to really deal. So this is something that I think should change. This is something that, I've been working with in the last 10 years, trying to change the narrative when it comes to this, so that women can have a voice. And, even when you have disability come in, then it's not because it's somebody's fault, but it's something that is probably medical and it should be looked into. So this is one big thing that I think I would like to have changed within the community of women. And if you see, for me, the people that really complained and antagonized me the most were also women. So, it wasn't really the men folks that were really giving me the bigger issues. It was like women like myself saying, why would you do this? Or you shouldn't even be able to talk because you gave birth to a child that has a congenital deformity. So I would think there's so much that we need to do, and so much that still needs to change, even though the narrative has been, begin to change. Thank you very much. I'm conscious of the fact that, we have time is also ticking.
Right. Thank you. Alma, do you want to take that?
Hi, everyone. So I think thanks, Crystal, for what you said, and I totally agree with you. I think for me, it starts with educating women when you talk about institutional and societal changes. To what extent do we, educate the girl child? So I think we need to place like a lot of emphasis on that. I know that there are so many places across the world, for example, even in Nigeria, where, people still believe that don't educate the girl child, you should just focus on educating, the male children, and, the girl is just prepped for marriage. In some northern parts in Nigeria, as little as 10, you have them being married off to, people who are old enough to be their grandfathers. And, so for you to be able to transform or empower a girl's mind, you need to educate her. And I think another thing I would want to talk about is, what are our corporate governance policies, in institutions, in workplaces? I mean, are there policies that actually states that, there should be like a balance when it comes to like employing like women, to meet up to the level of, the male employment? So I think our institutions really need to, consciously put those things in place where, by the time you're looking for new recruits, you're very conscious about the fact that, both the male and the female people have to be represented. Yeah, so thank you. I mean, that's one of the changes that we really need to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca?
So I kind of look at it from setting expectations, kind of similar to what Alma had said at a young age for women. So, first and foremost, I think we need to stop asking women when they want to have children or why they don't have children or how many children do you want to have? Because I think I was asked that the first time when I was like 5 years old. And the answer is, I don't want children then, I don't want children now. And so like that also has to be okay. And, much like Crystal said, a lot of that pressure will come from other women too. Like, what do you mean you don't want to have children? And I think if a man said that, it's okay. But because I said it, I should inherently want to have all of these children, obviously, because I'm a woman. And so like that expectation being set from the time that we're young, I think puts a lot of pressure on women to get married and have kids really young, whether it's the right partner or not, whether it's somebody who supports you and is there for you or not. And then secondly, I think the behavior that we model for our children is really important, and having that society shift to make it more normal for women to think about what their careers look like or to do whatever it is that they want to do. And I use my family as an example because I used to tell people my dad was a feminist before it was cool. And, in a total role reversal for the 80s, my mom was the breadwinner and my dad, while he made money most of our lives, he was a stay-at-home dad for like 3 or 4 years. He was very actively involved. He coached all of our sports. And he always set this tone that like, it's okay if you want to go to work, and it's okay if you want to make more money than your husband, and if you want to be highly educated. And he was always a champion for my mom. So it wasn't a question for me of whether or not those things were okay. I knew it was okay because it was inherently. And then when I got out into the real world and I saw how other families functioned, I was like, wait, that's not normal for a lot of dads to set that tone and be that kind of support. And I think it makes a really big difference in how our confidence level as women and how we feel in the workplace. If our parents are setting a tone that we can have that confidence, it's a lot more likely that we're going to have it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Ajay, so you want to take that?
Hello. Yes, I did want to chime in. Also, sorry, my laptop just like imploded for some random reason, so I had to switch over to my phone, and I will be switching back over to my laptop once it reboots or whatever. So forgive me for that. But I wanted to answer your question, Debbie, but it also ties in pretty much to what everybody else said. As a birth worker, somebody who is very passionate about reproductive justice, especially here in the United States, where that's like, it's a huge issue, especially because I'm sure everybody heard about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. That strips the right to bodily autonomy away from like more than half the population. But even before then, our medical system is trash. It's been trash. It's been trash for a really long time. And it has such a huge negative impact on so many people, not just women, but, like you said, Debbie, when women are happy, everyone else is happy. It's a trickle down effect, I guess, or a ripple effect. I'll say it that way. But our medical system here in the United States definitely needs a complete redo. Like, I'm a huge fan of anarchy in a sense, so I believe in like just completely tearing something down and rebuilding from the scraps if that's what's needed to be done, to be honest, which I feel like it's kind of getting to that point. But a system that puts people first. And I wore this hoodie because, well, A, it's a little bit cold, and B, it's also my favorite hoodie. It says people over profit. I feel very strongly about that because our medical system absolutely puts profit over people. And, it pisses me off to no end. I'll just be real with it. But yeah, I have seen and heard so many things that honestly, Rebecca, I'm like you. At one point, I was like, no to kids at all, mostly because I was afraid of what would happen to me or my potential child/children in this industry, in this country. And I know so many other women who feel that way, either my age or younger, or maybe even older. And it's because they feel like they have no option or they have no choice, or like their voices are not heard or respected. So, as a birth worker, it is my job to advocate for these women, either to educate them to be their voice if they cannot be their own, and to educate other people, maybe who are surrounded with surrounding those women who are pregnant or are giving birth, or even just people with an opinion, like everybody has. I feel like it's my job, it's my duty, my mission to make sure that everyone has an understanding of what's going on and what needs to change in order for our women to feel safer, therefore making sure that our children are happier and safer and their needs are being met, which in turn will help to improve and elevate our entire planet, all the people on our planet. So yeah, that's that.
Thank you. Cynthia?
Can you hear me? Okay, great. I want to add that I think societal changes would be more effective if it starts at the root from childhood. You can implement all the strategies and policies there are, but if the women don't have the capacity to receive it and to implement it, it wouldn't work. So I believe it has to start from when that girl is a child. She has to understand, little girls right now desperately need to understand who they are and accept who they are and build their confidence. Build their confidence for their education, build their confidence for the way they present themselves, build their confidence for the way they want to be in their homes and in their societies. Because you can have all those things, but if you are not connected to your inner self, if you don't accept yourself, you will always be unfulfilled. No matter how much success you have in the corporate world, in education, and in your home, how many children, unless you understand yourself and fully accept that and be that, you will always be unfulfilled. So I think the societal change starts with that, really focusing on having girls accept who they are. That's it.
I say go for it, other Cynthia.
Yes, I was just about to do that. So I'm just going to go straight in. Great name, by the way, Cynthia. And I totally agree with what you're saying. It starts, you have to implement that, you know, at a very young age. Now, I didn't want kids until I was in my 30s. I got to 30 and instantly, for me, I wanted a child. Now, I went through IVF, you know, I had 6 rounds, miscarriages, a lot. I wasn't able to have my daughter until I was 37 and going on 38. Now, my daughter's of mixed heritage, so we lived in a very predominantly white area. So I knew when she was going to go to school, she'd be in a very predominantly white area. Now, her hair is more of the Afro type hair. So as soon as she could start speaking, what I taught her was to, when I got her dressed, I'd done her hair, I told her to look in the mirror and turn around and say, I am pretty, I am beautiful, I am clever, Black is beautiful. Because I didn't want her feeling down about herself if any of the kids, you know, started touching her hair or saying, oh, your hair's different, why have you got curly hair? I wanted to like go, my hair's amazing. Now, I don't know what I've raised, but I've definitely raised a diva. She has the confidence, and, you know, these are the things that I wish my mum done to me. You know, implemented the confidence in me, implemented, you know, the reassurance in me, telling me that everything was going to be okay. You've got this, Cynthia, you've got this. So I know that I needed what I didn't get from my mom, I have definitely put into my daughter. And, you know, I'm just happy that do you know what, it's a lesson. So going back to what Cynthia says, you have to start them young. You have to start them young. You really do.
Yeah, thank you. Before I go to Margaret, Cynthia, your mother only did what she knew best. She didn't know anything else, so she couldn't give you what she didn't know. And the fact that you now know better, you need to do better, and you are doing better. So as much as there's sometimes we say that, you know, our parents or our grandparents wasn't able to do that, we still have to celebrate them because they did what they knew best. There was nothing else they knew. You know, I was fortunate because my mother was on the ball, but I also know in terms of, you know, aunts and uncles, etc., they were not on the ball as my mother was. You know, before we looked at in terms of independent woman, my mother was already an independent woman before we actually coined the phrase, right? So, you know, these are some of the things that I was fortunate, but not a lot of people are fortunate as I was. And the fact that, Cynthia, you now know better, so you've done better, and therefore spread the better word, right? Thank you very much for that. Margaret?
Yes, so thank you. I'm listening to everyone and agree with everything you've said. And I want to add, in terms of empowering children, I have 2 daughters as well, and they are definitely full of confidence. There's no doubt about that. But as an educator, the way that I look at it is, you know, I look at my own childhood, and I also look at where we are today. So if we're looking at the curriculum, you know, if we don't have women in the curriculum, you know, I sometimes get very concerned about, I watched my daughters go through school, and if you're teaching math, why don't we know who came up with this math? You know, why aren't we seeing, you know, these real human beings, these women who have contributed greatly to society? Why aren't we seeing them? And I think if more children have access to that, if more children have access to the Black women and men, you know, who have built the country, who have created math, who've done all these things. I think that you can build up the confidence of children very, very early as they're developing their personalities, as they're developing in those critical years. And also, one of the things that I still find disturbing, I found it disturbing when I was a kid, I still find it disturbing today. And that is that a lot of presents that are given to kids during Christmas, especially girls, had to do with dolls. I'm not anti-doll, but I'm sick of dolls. And when I was a kid, my mother gave me a baby doll and I ripped its head off. I was like, I don't want a baby. I want a car. My brother has the racing track. I want the racing track. Why does he get to have a racing track and I've got to play and dress the doll? And it's like this dressing up, and I'm not saying that kids can't have fun, but what I'm saying is that these are real choices that are impactful. And we have to understand what that means. If we're teaching our children to dress up dolls, and they're not focused on fashion, they're focused on being a mother. And I think that's what, we have to get away from that. We've got to get away from trying to gender our children a certain way and allow our children and give our children greater opportunities, and access to greater opportunities to become who they will become. But it's important to engage them in the curriculum that is going to make sure that it's developing their confidence about who they are. Even at 2 years old, it's important to have access to role models. It's still important to have that. And yes, families have role models, but I'm saying outside of the role models, if your kids are in school, it is important for them to see people who look like them, who've done amazing things, so they can feel that they can do it too.
Yeah. Thank you very much. One of the other question is, what do you think is the most significant barriers to female empowerment? What is the barrier that is there that is preventing us from being empowered? Who want to take it? Okay, go for it.
I'll take it. I think going back to what I was saying, it's confidence. I think, going back, a long time ago, like you were saying, Debbie, earlier, we were meant to be at home. We were meant to be doing the housework. We were meant to be looking after the kids. And I think, we've been stuck with that stigma. And I know that we're not all like that. We're not all designed like that. And that's why we are here today as powerful women, trying to break that circle. So I think with a lot of women out there, they feel that they can't do that because they haven't had the confidence to break away from that. So I think a lot of it is confidence. And that's what we need to change and teach, women out there that you can do this. I mean, that's one of my biggest things that I want to do to help women. I'm 48 years of age, and I never thought, I always wanted to, but never thought it would ever happen to me where I'm running my own business, where I am a businesswoman. But I kept on pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing because I lacked confidence. And once again, going back to, that's all my mum knew is what she knew. But once again, I had to push through that. Come on, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. So I think a big thing why women don't is confidence. Starts with confidence, it really does.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. It's interesting that, the barriers, it's interesting. Thank you. Yes, Crystal?
For me, I think one of the biggest barriers, especially, and again, I'll narrow it down to Africa, is the cultural stereotype. So I remembered when I first got married and my mom came around, to stay with us for a bit, visiting, and you know, she was shocked that in my house, it wasn't the regular thing that she was used to, which is, you know, the woman wakes up in the morning, makes breakfast for the family. You have to, and I stayed in a city where, you know, there was no pipe-borne water. So you would need to go fetch water and all of that. And she was wondering, you know, why I wasn't doing all of those things for my spouse. At some point, you know, she even had to ask him to say, oh, are you happy with her? She's not doing this thing. So that's a stereotype. And that's one of the biggest barriers, that, you know, as the woman, you should be the one to cook, you should be the one to do the homework, house chores. And by the time you're done, really, you're not able to even pretty much think and come up with your own concepts and the things that you want to do. I think that's one of the biggest barriers. Alma already talked about the fact that, you know, when you even think of some, it's, you know, educating the girl child is almost like a taboo. When you're spending money to educate the girl child, you will hear people from your family telling you you're wasting funds. And, you know, that's a big barrier, because when people cannot afford it and they have to make a choice of who to educate, then the person that suffers is the female child. Yeah. And once the child does not go to school, then you realize that you probably cannot even push through and have yourself lead at the end of the day. So these are, you know, a few barriers. And then also, finally, again, in Africa, it's the man that makes the decisions, and, you know, financial decisions. So if you don't have money, then you can't really, you know, you don't have access to finance, you don't have access to credit, and it becomes really difficult. In fact, if you're single in Nigeria, getting a house of your own becomes difficult. You'll be asked to go and bring the male, or your husband, your partner, whoever, but a male figure that is going to stand in for you to be able to rent an apartment. I think that is really bullshit. Yeah. And what really happens is we suffer as a result of that. We don't have houses. So I have a lot of friends that are single and they literally can't get a house. They are stuck just because they are female. And it really can be very frustrating. Sometimes you don't get the kind of job that you deserve and you don't have access. So it's a whole lot. The barrier is so much just because you are female. So if you have to push through sometimes, then you're not seen as someone that is breaking the ceiling and going past it. You're seen as someone that is rebellious. You're seen as someone that, you know, and it becomes really difficult. But one of the good things that I think, and you know, if you think of the International Women's Day this year, talking about equity and, you know, pushing the narrative, you're beginning to see a lot of difference, but still it's there. And those barriers are really, really very huge.
Thank you.
Crystal,
Thank you.
can I ask Crystal a question?
Yes, sure.
Absolutely.
So Crystal, are you seeing more women politicians over the last few years?
That's an interesting question. So yes, but it's still very slow. So we just had a concluded elections, and it's not been announced, but there is a woman that just became the first female governor in Nigeria and in the north. But again, after about 3-4 days, we hear that the elections are inconclusive. There's been a lot of celebration because she's the first female governor in Nigeria and in the north. And, you know, it's really tough, but you see people in the Senate. So you see more ministers. So we're beginning to break the barrier, but it's just that representation is still very low.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Rebecca?
So I'm going to kind of second what Crystal said and then add something else to it. So I think the biggest barriers that I see are usually boiled down to finances and emotions. So, you know, even in the United States, like I can't imagine my friends not being able to buy a house in this day and age, right? Like that would blow my mind. But even in the United States, if you think about it, women didn't even have access to credit until the 70s. So you can't, you know, the reason that people were often like trapped in a marriage was because what was your other option? Financially, you had no choice. And so I think it becomes a really big barrier even now, because when we're looking at the finances of the man and the woman for a standard relationship, say, it is often that the male counterpart earns more money. So no matter what that situation is, it often puts you at a disadvantage. And if you do decide to be, a stay-at-home mom or something like that, you have even less options available for you if you are, wanting to embark on your own and empower yourself or do something like that. So I think finances becomes a really big play. And then the second thing is emotions. And I think, at the end of the day, maybe women are more emotional creatures. I find men to be very emotional too, but, I guess we view anger different than all the other emotions, and that's fine. But I don't see women being more emotional as a bad thing. I think if we can change the narrative around emotions being bad, we may be able to kind of break through these glass ceilings that have been created for us. And I always, if you look at the research and the studies right now, employees say the number one thing that makes a good leader is empathy. And if you don't have emotion within you, you're not able to practice that empathy. And so the reality is that the emotions that maybe we feel more of make us better leaders, make us more thoughtful, make us more able to relate to the people who are around us. And so if we can overcome that narrative that being emotional is a bad thing, I think that we'll actually see society shift to empowering women to rise in those roles.
Thank you. Alma, and then Aja, and then Margaret, and then Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. So I had wanted to add to what Crystal had said. And, when Crystal started talking, I started to ask, because, it was literally almost the same thing that I had in mind. And I started to ask myself, is it a Nigerian factor? Because I really want to speak about how, the stereotyping affects the mind of women. For example, I've heard statements like work hard, but not too much. If not, nobody will marry you. I've heard statements like, don't be too ambitious or too outspoken. It's a turn off, so it's really upsetting, how, those discriminatory, societal norms and stereotypes just affects the mind of women. And if you agree with me, one of the hardest things to rework in an individual is the mind, so when you have a girl child who's growing up and it's like her life is in a woman's life, in every context of her life, at home, place of worship, in a community, anywhere, it's like everybody wants to tell you what to do. Everybody wants to tell you how to behave. Everybody wants to just, don't look this way, don't look left, look right, act this way, it's just crazy. At some point, to enter some rooms, I had to pretend to be married, where I actually I would put on a ring, to be able to enter some rooms so that they can give me the deserved respect. Like Crystal was saying, here in Nigeria, you're a single lady, you can't even get a house. People just disrespect you and, they call you names, it's crazy. And I just really feel like that stereotyping is one of the greatest barriers, because it really affects the mind of women. And I don't know how we're going to break free. I think Cynthia had said it before. She was talking about how, raising children, and before they can even, the moment they're able to speak, you start to tell them what to say to themselves. I'm beautiful, I'm confident, nobody will make a choice for me. I'll make my choices and all of that. So I think that's one of the things that really, really affects women. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to just focus for a minute about some of the statistics on women businesses. I think this is important for people to know. There's some, I'm just going to read a few of them because I think, it really says something about what's happening. The US has 12.3 million women-owned businesses. The US owned businesses generate $1.8 trillion a year. 40% of US businesses are women-owned. Women started 1,821 net new businesses every day last year. 64% of new women-owned businesses were started by women of color last year. Latina women-owned businesses grew more than 87%. There are 114% more women entrepreneurs than there were 20 years ago. 62% of women entrepreneurs cite their business as their primary source of income. Private tech companies led by women achieve 35% higher ROI. Women-founded companies in first-round capital's portfolio outperformed companies founded by men by 63%. Just 25% of women business owners seek business financing. That's a problem. Women-owned businesses added 500,000 jobs between 1997 and 2007. Women receive just 7% of venture funds for their startups. 7%. They're doing all these amazing things and they receive 7%. Women have a 69.5% success rate of crowdfunding for their businesses, while men have a 61.4% success rate. 57.4% of the Small Business Association microloan programs loans went to women-owned or women-led businesses. Female entrepreneurs ask for roughly $35,000 less in business financing than men. And overall, men receive an average loan size of $43,916, while women receive an average loan size of $38,942, almost $5,000 less. There are barriers, and also there are exceptions. And so I think that more women who know these stats, I think we can see them responding to those stats and making those changes that need to happen. But the venture capital, that's disturbing. That is very disturbing, which means that more women have to develop these venture capital, organizations so that they're the ones giving back to women. I think that we have to lead.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you after because I need those stats. we need to actually, oh, right. These are information we need to put out in places, so that the world could see, because they're not seeing it, because they don't see us. Thank you for that. Ajay, you want to?
Yeah. So when you first asked the question, it took me a minute to come up with an answer in my head, because I was like, well, nothing really besides ourselves. But then the more I listened to everyone talk, the more it kind of narrowed down for me. The biggest barrier, I guess, would be gender roles. That ties in a lot with the stereotypes where Crystal started us off with. And so my take on it, I am queer, and I'm also a fan of trans people existing, because I feel like their existence closes the gender gap in every aspect of our lives: education, business ownership, careers, whatever the deal is. I feel like trans existence helps to kind of fill in that gap. So therefore it just, the gap doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing there. I feel like gender roles, a man's place, a woman's place, that is dangerous for us as a global society. But I feel like energetic roles, energy being masculine and feminine energy, I think that can be a lot more beneficial for us as a whole, because when we understand that masculine and feminine energy exists within all of us, maybe some have more, some have less. Like here we are in this group, we all, well, I'm assuming we all identify as women. That's why we're here. But each of us understands that there is a masculine energy that exists within us that has kind of driven us to create these businesses that we have or make the choices that we have. It's the ambitious, it's the penetrative, it's the logical sides of us that have brought us to where we are here. That is an energy. That's not necessarily a role, like a gendered role that we play. And you know, as we know, well, I feel like not enough people know this, but gender and sexuality and energy are all completely different things. So I feel like an education on all of those aspects really would help to broaden people's minds and also broaden people's viewpoints on other people and how they move and how they operate within the world. So yeah, I feel like doing away with gender roles, that would help us to eliminate stereotypes and, you know, believing that because this person appears this way on the outside, that means that they should fit neatly into these boxes here when they just don't. I feel like I said in the beginning, I don't believe in boxes. Like I don't believe in thinking outside of the box because there is no box. So I feel like placing people into boxes based off of their genitalia or their outward appearance is dangerous. And once we do away with that, then that will release a whole lot of barriers for feminine presenting people or feminine energy dominant people / masculine dominant people. It'll release a whole lot of the barriers for people to be able to do things that feel more natural to them, or maybe they're skilled in it, or maybe that particular thing is what's going to, you know, help all of us live better. So thank you.
Thank you for that. That's interesting, because as we know, a lot of these things are social construct. Thank you. Cynthia?
I always have an issue with my mute button. Okay. I believe that the first issue or barrier with women empowerment, female empowerment, is the problem of unity within ourselves, within the world of womanhood or women. The lack of unity, the lack of respect for each other, the judgmentalness, for lack of a better word. What does female empowerment mean? Is it limited to having a business, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner? My mother was very entrepreneurial. She left Haiti on a boat 7 times before she was able to escape the Coast Guard in the Bahamas and run into the bushes. And in the Bahamas, with no education, no formal education, not knowing how to speak the language, I watched my mother create 7 streams of income within her home. I watched my mother be a courageous woman and become self-made, sending me and my siblings to private school and giving us everything she never had. My mother caused me to become an entrepreneur since I was 8 years old. I never had a job in my life because I watched my mother be an entrepreneur and I learned that skill. I learned from my mother what courage was. So I was courageous and not afraid to try something and fail and do it again. So what is female empowerment? Again, is it limited to having a business? Is a woman raising her children, running her home, choosing to run her home, take care of her husband and her children, be active in her community? Doesn't she deserve as much as a respect as a woman who built a business from the ground into a billion-dollar firm? We have to define what is feminine empowerment. We need to respect each other. I'm in the beauty pageant world, and we are stigmatized. We are laughed at. The division I am in is for married women who compete in pageants. These are the most accomplished women I have ever met. Doctors, lawyers, educators, stay-at-home moms, housewives, women in STEM, all competing in pageants so that they can raise awareness for the causes that they are passionate about. Yet we are stigmatized because we wear crowns and sashes and 6-inch heels. Aren't we feminine empowerment? Aren't we female empowerment? So I think the problem is unity, respect, and being judgmental. I should be able to see a businesswoman and say, go sis, girl, you are bad, girl, go get them. And she should see a housewife and say, girl, you are running your house like a corporation. You go, girl. That's female empowerment. You see another one on the streets just passing out food and helping people. Girl, you just go. We see another one on the front lines marching and protesting. Girl, you are bad. What can I do to help? That's female empowerment. And until we can do that, men will never respect us because we don't respect ourselves. That's it.
Thank you very much. Margaret?
Oh my God, you want me to go after that?
The bike says hi.
I feel like she said it all. You know? No, she's right. She's right. I think that we have to learn how to exist as a group. And I think that we have to tear down the stereotypes of women fighting, you know, women being jealous about frivolous things. You know, the sports industry starts really early for boys. It builds unity. And I think for girls, we do have, you know, sports for women, but it's just not treated in the same way. Our culture, we don't put as much emphasis on women in sports and building up, you know, becoming a team or a community. And I think that we can do a better job at that. And I think that's a huge barrier. And then we can, you know, we can foster this this feeling and community over time with young girls. My girls went to an all-girls school, you know, because I wanted that. I wanted them to have that. You know, I said, you know, they would say to me, well, why do we have to go to an all-girls school? And I said, because you need to know who you are as women. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to have relationships, healthy relationships with other females. It's important for you to have that now when you're young, so that you can really value that as you get older. And I have to say, I feel like I made the right decision. I think that that's what we need. We need to make sure that girls have those communities, you know, that are developed at a young time in their life, and foster that over the years. And it's all, again, I keep coming back to education. It's part of developing an enriching education for our girls, not just at home, but because they spend just as much time at school, our schools have to mirror, you know, those values that we have at home.
Yes, I really agree with that in terms of education. It all starts with education. And when we talk about education, it doesn't mean, you know, we need to look at it. It doesn't have to be traditional education. We just talking on this platform is educating. And we need to move away from education being, you know, the institution. We are the educators. We need to educate the future generation, the women, to make them value themselves and to make them realize that when they're in a relationship and it's toxic, it is toxic. You know, if he is like, he's trying to say some things to you, trying to make you jealous, and you feel that because you're 16, 17, it's okay because you like him. No, it's not okay. You know, so those are some of the things I feel as women, we need to, you know, we need to set the standard. Because the children are only seeing us as their role model. However, whatever we model ourselves on, that's what they see. Anyway, the next question is, how do we empower? How do we as women empower ourselves? and other women around us. So how do you empower yourself as a woman? And how do you empower younger women, especially younger women? Because I think that we need to catch them young and help them go up. Yes, the older women also need empowerment, but I think it is so important that we actually foster those empowerment in the young women. So how do you empower yourself and empower other women around you, especially the younger ones? Anybody take that?
Oh, cool.
Go ahead.
Well, I know personally, I feel the most empowered when I am educated on any topic, really. So I'm big on research, doing my own research, not just listening to what other people tell me and taking that and running with it, and not just Googling whatever it is, looking at the first article that pops up. Like, I will read a whole bunch of things, you know what I mean? Or books, or watch movies, documentaries, whatever the deal is. Really deep diving into education, and also having conversations with people who have experienced whatever it is, just having conversations in general. So that is, I think for me, that might be like the number one thing to empower myself, and also to empower other women and young girls, just people in general, is having an education and having the eagerness to explore things deeper than what we have been taught that they were. I feel like if we just accept the first thing that we hear about something and just stop there, then we're really limiting our potential. So I know, like I was stating earlier, being a birth worker, informed consent, educating my clients and being an advocate for that, that's really important to me. And I know that that helps them to be able to make better decisions that are more supportive of their health and their well-being. So yeah, education, that's it.
Thank you. Rebecca?
So I was gonna say kind of the same from the education standpoint of myself, where I really try to seek knowledge. But I also think that, you know, coming at life with kind of an open mind is really important towards your empowerment. So, you know, I myself, right, like in order to seek that knowledge, if you're coming at it with a mindset or without the ability to say, okay, maybe I was wrong, then you're probably not going to learn the information that you need to learn to educate yourself in the way that you feel like a presence in a room when it matters. And I would never want my stubbornness to get in the way of being a presence in the room when it matters. And I think that open-mindedness, I try to translate to those younger generations. So I've always gone back to my colleges to sit on panels and to talk. I actually worked in student housing for years. And so I would often travel to a lot of different colleges, and I would, you know, take the opportunity to be someone's mentor or do all of that. And what I learned through that process is you actually really have to walk into that with an open mind as well. It's not just about the education. It's not just about the life experience you have. It's also about being able to ingest what's being told to you and not automatically be like, no, that's a terrible idea. Absolutely don't do that, because that's what your gut tells you to say when people are making decisions that you wouldn't necessarily make. And so if I want to pass that empowerment on, I can't come in with my mind made up. I have to come in with the ability to say, I honor who you are. Here's my advice. Let's work through this together, because that gives them the opportunity to also gather that knowledge and to get better and to feel empowered, like they made the decision. I don't need to make their life decisions for them. That's not what I'm here to do. And so, you know, I want to learn my life lessons the way that I've learned them. And I want to be able to pass that along to people that I mentor and reach out to, because I want them to feel confident and I want them to feel comfortable in that space. And like they could walk into a room and say, no, my life experience and education has gotten me here, not somebody I asked a question to. So I think that open-mindedness kind of in your own life, but also for the lives of the people around you becomes really important to making sure that they feel powerful where they are.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really powerful. Thank you. Alma?
Yes, thank you. So in terms of like empowering myself, I think what everyone says is literally, I feel like you can never stop learning. You know, learning is infinite. So at every point, you know, you have to look for how to keep developing yourself. Are you taking, like Aja had said, she does a lot of research. What kind of courses are you taking? Are you taking like character development courses? Are you taking professional courses? You know, are you just trying to improve yourself? Another thing I do is I'm always ready. You know, I'm always ready to sit in a room where all my mentors are at. You know, I really look forward to, you know, I look forward to always meeting people who have gone ahead of me, you know, who know better than myself. And I want to sit down in their midst and just, you know, converse with them. You know, I just want to listen. I'll chip in as much as I can, but most of the times I'm just like, you know, doing the listening, you know, trying to learn, because I mean, there's a reason why they've gone ahead of me, of us, you know. We don't necessarily need to make the mistakes that they made, you know, so they're just setting the pace. And then in terms of like empowering other women, I typically really believe in walking the talk, you know, because one thing I find out is that a lot of women talk about women empowerment, but then I really check, what are you doing? You know, it's not just talking about it. Are you practicing it? For example, in the investment company that, you know, I run, I give preference to female run businesses. You know, so many people submit applications and all of that. The moment we see that, you know, there's a female here applying for something, I mean, I'm so quick to, you know, respond to that. You know, I mean, even if we cannot support with finances, maybe that's not what your business needs. You know, there are other ways you can support. You know, you could help out with strategy. You know, you could say, okay, I think this is the next step for your business. This is what you should be doing before you probably look for funding and all of that. And I mean, it's a no-brainer. Even the school that we have in Abuja is typically for girls. There's a reason why it's for girls, you know, because we look at, you know, you look at you measure, you know, the amount of male children are sent to school and the female children, and it's ridiculous, you know. And the truth is that, for example, in Nigeria, I mean, there are a lot of really poor and impoverished people, a lot of them. And then imagine, first of all, coming from a poor background, first thing, that's like the first crime. The second crime is now like you're a girl. So even when it comes to education, they don't even consider you, you know. So we're like, how can we go, you know, into all those communities where, you know, there are girls who are so brilliant, you know, but they just need the funding, they just need the access to education. Because when you educate and empower those girls, they'll be the ones who will grow up and, you know, make a lot of changes, you know. And another thing I make sure I do is anything about mentoring women. You know, if I'm invited, if, you know, I see the opportunities, I always sign up, you know. And I've been privileged to just mentor a couple of, you know, young women, and it's amazing the kind of things you see them do. In our investment company, we typically have investors, you know, people who would bring in money to say, oh, they want to invest. And on our record so far, over 85% of our investors are women. So it just shows that literally women are more concerned about their funds. They're more concerned about, you know, managing their funds. So when Margaret was talking about, you know, the way female businesses have been thriving, it's actually really true. Even when we give out loans, most of our defaulters, you would hardly find a female defaulter, you know, because women-run businesses are so well managed, you know, they would hardly default, you know, those loans you give to them, you know. So I just really hope that you know, we can just do so much more for women. I mean, it's amazing. Women are amazing. Women are unique people, and, you know, as much as we can, we should always try to empower them with everything we have. You know, I look back and I always tell, and I say to God, I say, by the time I'm leaving Earth, I really want to feel like, you know, I really helped the next woman beside me. You know, I looked at my fellow woman and, you know, I stretched out a helping hand, and I just, you know, drew her close. So that's what it's been for me. Thank you.
Wow, that's lovely. I like the part that you just draw her close. That's lovely. Thank you. Cynthia?
For me, I agree with everything my sister just said. I'm addicted to personal development. I love learning. I love growing. I believe that we are all here to experience this world as humans in whatever capacity that is. I try to grow every single day. I want to get to a point where my physical expression is my higher self, right? I don't believe that I use the word growing, but I like to say I'm unfolding. We are already that flower. We just need to begin expressing that. Like I always say, the sun doesn't try to shine, it already shines. So you have everything within you to be who you were created to be. It is a matter of tapping into it and letting it express itself outwardly. So that's my passion, and I do everything. I have mentors, and one of the things that helped me with that, ironically, is beauty pageants. Again, because it is a sport. If you can stand in 6-inch heels for 10 hours in a long gown in a freezing room with 60 other women who speak multiple languages, highly educated, running businesses, and you're wearing makeup for 10 hours a day, it forces you to eat properly. It forces you to walk better. It enhances your speaking skills. You have to be able to interview on the spot. You have no idea what questions they are asking you. So that's one of the reasons why I love beauty pageants, because it helps me to grow. And I love growing. And another way I help my own empowerment is, again, making sure that everything I do is consistent with who I am. Before, I was a serial entrepreneur. Everything I did had to be with being an entrepreneur. Now that I've shifted my life, I want to try another experience. I'm having another experience. I am a housewife. I'm active in the community. I'm helping my grandchildren. I'm helping my family members. I'm helping my husband. Everything that I do is consistent with that. Anything else that comes in, I don't care how much money it can make. I don't care how much fame it can bring. If it's not consistent with who I am being to help with my own empowerment, it cannot come into my life. So I'm always on the lookout to see what is consistent. What is in alignment with who I am? That internal person I said that we all have that. And I think one of the best things we can do as individuals is have a vision of what that highest self is. Because you wouldn't believe it, a lot of people are successful outside of who they really are. We're humans. God gave us everything that we need to be who we are. We can fake it and still be successful. That's why people aren't fulfilled. You can be a successful businesswoman. You can be a successful politician. You can be a successful housewife, and it is completely misaligned with who you really are. So I try every day, because as women, we have these capabilities. We can do it. It's a no-brainer. We have the courage, we have the strength, we have the intelligence. We can make things happen. But is that really you? Paris Hilton, believe it or not, fooled everyone. That's not the real, that's a fake voice. When she did the Netflix special and revealed her true voice, I was like, OMG. This woman presented a completely different person, became successful at it, and that's not even really her. The real her is in pain because of what she went through as a teenager. So my female empowerment, my own empowerment, is to make sure I am being who I really am, number one. For now, my empowerment for other women, because I am a suicide widow, I lost my husband to suicide, my first husband to suicide 7 years ago. Since then, I have been working with widows to help them, not realizing that while I'm working with widows, that I was healing myself. Even though I was lying telling people that my husband died in a plane crash or with a heart attack, because I was a social media person, I was a life coach, and I didn't want anyone to know that Cynthia's husband died by suicide. How embarrassing. So I lied for 6 years until I became a part of the beauty pageant, and my pageant coach and mentor, because I love mentors and coaches, she kept drilling me. Why are you so passionately helping widows? She kept drilling me. And one day I just stopped and I said, because my husband died by suicide. He had a mental illness. And that was the first time in 6 years I went back to that place, because my mother taught me how to be courageous and keep going. And I kept going and I rebuilt my life while I was lying about how he died. And because of a beauty pageant, I revealed how he really died. And that's when I started getting additional healing. And now I help a whole world. Debbie, I never knew there was a world of other women whose husbands died by suicide who were in hiding, who were also lying that their neurosurgeon husband committed suicide, that their attorney husband committed suicide. They all are lying about how their husbands died because of the shame and the stigmas. And that's how my female empowerment is. Right now, I am helping widows, especially suicide widows, understand that you lost this person, but you're not going to move on. There's no such thing as moving on. You are going to continue living with the memory of your loved one, and you will thrive. And that's what I do now.
You know, that's so powerful. And it's not lying, you know. Society forces us to pretend due to the stigma attached and how society make you feel due to the conditioning. That's the sad thing about it. How society forces us to be what we are not because of the stigma and the conditioning. Wow, that's powerful. It's like silent, because we could all connect to that somewhere or another. How we have to pretend someone else. Because I listened to someone, I can't remember who said it, I think it was Alma. She had to pretend that she's married by wearing a ring. Society forced us to pretend. It is so sad that when we have enough strength, we actually throw that away and start living our true self. Whoa. Thank you. Margaret? Oh, sorry, I keep on making you go off the CJ.
That's okay.
I was like, sorry, it's an unconscious thing.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. That is so moving, on so many different levels. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you for your honesty and your willingness to share the most personal parts of yourselves today. For me, I think Cynthia is also, I think all of us are saying this as well, is that what empowers me is advocating. Advocating for myself and advocating for others. When I went into business, I recognized that a lot of minority-owned businesses and women businesses, were suffering, and we weren't getting, our needs met. And so any opportunity I have to advocate, I do. I went to the National Retail Federation and spoke with them. I became active in the National Retail Federation. And so they asked me to co-host some town halls, talk to our congressional leaders, and I did, and I pushed back on those leaders because, you work for us, and we have specific needs as women and as businesses, minority-owned businesses, and advocating is not always about what you need. And for me, it's about understanding that I am collectively a part of others. And so I cannot approach advocating thinking solely about what I'm going to get out of this relationship. You know, it's about the community. How does the community move forward? How do I represent the community in a way that all of our needs can be met? Because then it's clear to so many of us who are struggling, so many of us who are seeing such injustices and unfairness across education and business when it comes to women. And it's so important for us to join together collectively. And also, when you see an institution that has so much power and you have an opportunity to sit at the table, I say take a seat. You know, take a seat. You know, we always talk about how we may not have time to do this. We can't. Take the time. Take the time, because we don't even know if we're ever going to be given this opportunity again. And so advocating to me is so important. I teach my students to advocate for themselves. My students who are differently abled, it's so important for me to talk to them about, you know, don't let the institution get away with not giving you the quality education that you deserve. So here's what we're going to do. Here's what you have to do. You know, so I truly believe that it is our responsibility as the people who've experienced life a lot longer than these younger people, that we be those role models, that we give them, that we teach them to fish. You know, if we can teach them to fish, then we know that they're going to be able to take care of themselves. But, you know, we have to make sure that we are teaching advocating from a very young age. And I think that for me, I don't know who I would be without being an advocate for others and myself.
Thank you very much. That is so powerful. My goodness, the richness coming out of this platform. Wow, this is fantastic, 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 fantastic. Crystal, and what else have I said? Is just Crystal alone haven't addressed that question?
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Cynthia, for sharing. That was really powerful. I think for me, it's two major things. The work I do is an expression of how I reach out to other women, because when you also look at it, women with children with disabilities find it very difficult to be expressive or to bring their children out and all of that. So telling my story, sharing with them helps to just tell them it's possible. So that's one big way of just really showcasing. And then for myself, I think one of the things that I do for myself is, and I think Alma put it just right, apart from just educating myself and sucking from other people, I try to introspect and go in and get strength for myself, because a lot of time you are out there and there's so much giving and you just really need to take in. So sometimes it's in me just resting and just, you know, taking time to sleep. Sometimes it's in reading up and learning. Sometimes it's in listening to mentors. Sometimes it's in just showing up in the room. Sometimes I'm really not saying much, but I'm showing up. And just the fact that I'm present helps me take my place at the table and just, you know, lend my voice out there. And I think one thing that Cynthia said that also captures it is being authentic. So I remember this morning sharing with someone, a parent was sharing with me how the child had not gone to school for about 2 years after amputation. And she was asking me how I was dealing, you know, with my own daughter being able to do all the activities that she had to do. And I said, you know what? I just put it in your face that I have a child with disabilities. And if there's nothing, you can't tell me to get out of the room because I've already put it on the table. And so when I put it on the table, you know, the expression goes from the discrimination and stigmatizing to empathy, and then trying to understand a bit more what's going on. So pretty much is really being authentic and owning your story. For some of us, it takes longer. For some of us, it's shorter, but just really going through that journey and being able to own it and loving it. It took me 2.5 years to go ahead with the amputation of my daughter's leg, even though I knew from day one that the leg had to be amputated. I needed to to come to terms with it. I mean, there were times when I showed up in the hospital and ran away, even after I'd been booked in for us to do the surgery. And, you know, at some point, my spouse had to tell me that, you know what, I think you're not ready for this process and we need to wait till you're ready. And, you know, it took me 2.5 years to make that decision. I've met people that it's taken 10 years to make the decision to go ahead with the amputation. And some people have not even come to terms with it. And I think that we get to that place at different points and it's okay. So it's just really owning it and just knowing that there are times when we really are strong and there are times when we are not strong enough to, and it's okay to just, you know, let it be and just chill and relax. So I guess that's how it's been for me, and being able to empower other people and empowering myself. I do rest. I take all the rest and all the help I can get. So when I get someone that says, oh, can I help you with this? I'm like, it's okay. Yes, you can go ahead and help me with that. And I just, you know, take the back burner because yeah, we want to do everything as women, but I also know that it's okay for me to get someone to wash my plates and I'm not the one doing the washing of the plates. So that's how I've been able to cope.
I like that because that also demonstrates self-love and self-care. Why should we do it all the time for ourselves? We need to know when we should accept the self-love and the self-care. And if someone wants to wash the plate, if someone wants to, you know, go down the road to the shop for me, thank you. Why should I say, no, it's okay. No, it's self-love and self-care. As you rightly say, Cynthia, it's like, you know, taking that time out and just rest. We need to be okay with just resting, you know. Thank you for that. Who else haven't spoken regarding that? Who else haven't spoken about the barriers? Have everybody spoken about the barriers? Okay. Right. The final question is, what advice would you give women who were working or who wants to work in a male-dominated role or field? What advice you would give to any woman who wants to work or who is working in a male-dominated field? And she's feeling isolated, she's feeling alone. What advice would you give to her?
I love this question. Most of my working history has been in male-dominated fields. And really my advice is to women who ask is that, like, you deserve to be there, and knowing that when you're in the room matters, because when you lack that confidence and you don't think you deserve to be there, they can smell it. And there's a ripple effect to that. So if you can hold your head high and know that you earned the same degree, you went out for the same job, you wrote the resume, you went to the interview, you deserve to be there. And so own it, own that space, and speak up when you know the answer, because there's nothing more powerful than saying, no, wait, I know. I have this one. You don't have to speak over me. You know, let your voice be heard in that space because you deserve to be in that space.
Thank you for that. It's very true. It's owning your space and feeling that you deserve it. And you are enough to get there, which is fantastic. Thank you. Crystal, you say you want to take that next?
Yeah. So I remember I used to work in a sales job where out of 21 guys, I was the only woman. And in fact, at some point they started calling everyone guys. So the other thing I would say is know you're tough, know your job, be great at what you do, because when you are great at what you do, it honestly wouldn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. And so your skills and your delivery, your expertise would speak for you at all times. And when it does, even when they don't want to recognize they can't push, you know, the work that you're doing aside, they would have to acknowledge that work. And I remember before I left being in the private sector, I actually got the award for the best salesperson in the team. and it was I mean, I was the only woman in that team. Then at some point, another lady joined me, but they were mostly guys, but they couldn't, push the fact that I was so good at it, and they would come to me for that job, and ask for me to explain to them how they can get it done. So I think also when you find yourself in that space, in addition to speaking up and owning it, you also need to be great at what you do, so that that also speaks for you at all times. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very true. Alma?
Thank you. So the first thing I would say whenever, ask this kind of question is, I tell women to ask themselves critical questions. And the reason why I say that is because I want to be sure that, they're not being driven by the wrong reasons or the wrong motives. Many times, sometimes I even wonder, like, well, when they say male-dominated field, I want to believe it's because maybe you mostly find men currently, in that industry or whatever it is. So I ask them questions. I tell them to ask themselves questions like, are you sure this is where you want to be? Are you sure this is what you want for yourself? What's driving you, to want to be in that industry? And like Crystal had said, by the time you're sure that, okay, this is what I want to be, this is what it takes, you must be willing to put in the work, because if by the time you get into that industry, and you have nothing to show for it, you can imagine how you'll be treated. But if you put in the work and you're achieving like remarkable results that cannot even be denied, then at some point, there's no way, the respect will come. Another thing is, with what is currently going on, there are actually more companies are actually coming out there to, support women empowerment. Everybody's trying to join the bandwagon and all of that. So I tell people to carefully choose, the companies you decide to work with. So if you say, okay, yes, I want to work in this male-dominated field, how do you choose the company, you want to work with? What kind of research do you do on that company? It goes as far as going to their website. What are their core values? Check their boards, check their management team. Are women represented there? Check their corporate governance policies. Are there policies that, support women in the organization? Even when you go for interviews, like, be bold, ask them. You can go for the interviews and ask, like, how do you support women in your organization? So it just typically boils down to you as the woman doing, playing your own part to make sure that, you're not finding yourself in a company where at the end of the day, all they're doing is probably demoralizing you, or they're sexist, or, somebody wants you to slip your way up the ladder, So if you find companies that have like clear growth patterns or clear growth pathways, where it is, if I work, I'll get promoted, they follow procedures, those are the kind of things you want to do. Then the last thing I would say is, it's not a competition. In honest truth, the fact that you find yourself in a male-dominated field, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're competing with the next man out there. So I always tell women to like keep an open mind. It's okay to be friends and learn from your male, colleagues. The reason why it's a male-dominated field is because currently there are mostly men who are in that field, and there are men who have gotten experience in that field. So it's okay, if you have colleagues who are, they've gotten good experience, they could even mentor you, whether they're male, have an open mind, be friends with them, work with them. It's more of like a collaboration than, a competition. I think that's the angle I come from. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to jump in.
Cynthia, you said? Okay.
Do you mind if I jump in?
Go ahead.
I agree with everything everyone has said, because all of that is so important. And I also wanted to add that when the way that I see, I've been in areas in construction, and when I was a teenager and I was the only girl, and the men, I was very aware of my gender in this space, and they were also very aware of my gender in that space, and it caused them to treat me a certain way. And as I got older and I was in other places, like a television station that was predominantly male, I also was attacked by a male in the elevator who kissed me on the mouth. Men also said things about my breasts. And so what I didn't understand, because I was very young, I didn't understand that I had a right to push back against that, you know, and force these men to see me as a human being. And I think that that's what I want to say, is that we have to make sure that we have boundaries and that we're willing to speak up when men cross those boundaries, that they're not allowed to recreate us in the image they want us to be. And so to me, that I think that I would hope that we would be able to do that, that more women are doing that today, is not allowing men to cross those boundaries. And I know there are more lawsuits. I know that there are more lawsuits as a result, you know, but also to speak up, you know, so it's not always just a lawsuit, but really, you know, to be empowered enough to speak up and not let those boundaries, and not run away. If a man crosses the boundary and you speak up, you know, not to run away from that. Because I ran away, I quit. I got to the point I was like, I can't do this anymore, because I didn't have that kind of instruction. I didn't have that kind of confidence. I didn't have any women around me or men around me who kind of helped me understand what I could do. So I do think that it's important to not allow others to recreate you in the image that they want to see you.
Thank you. That's very, very true. Cynthia?
Yes, I totally agree. I also believe that, yes, the confidence, know that you belong there as much as they do. Speak up. And I think for me, the most important would be follow your gut, follow your intuition. If it feels bad, it's bad. If you feel you should say something, say something. Don't let it, like as they say, don't let it slide. Because once you let it slide, there's no turning back. Trust your intuition. That's your superpower.
That's very, very true. We need to start believing in ourselves a lot more than we do now. Yeah. Cynthia Greenwood, are you there still? Okay. Oh, she's gone. Okay, who else haven't gone? Oh, yes, Ajay.
So, as somebody who just recently started working in a male-dominated space, I wouldn't say the whole industry. Well, actually, I really don't know. But I picked up a job at a tattoo shop where there are 3 men and 1 other woman, and a lot of the people who come in there are men. And you know, I've been paying real close attention to how they operate and how women operate in that space around them. I also recently had this conversation with my mother and my sister, because my sister is a general manager at a store, and the owner of the store has no idea what he's doing. Like, she's younger than him, but she has more experience, and she still feels uncomfortable to speak up for herself in that space. And so, like, honestly, I don't remember who, I think everybody's kind of touched on it, but like having the confidence to speak up for yourself, that, yes, but like, what does that really look like? And so I know for me a long time ago, I realized this. Women have this really bad habit of apologizing for their existence. Like, they walk past somebody, the hallway is like this wide and the person's way over here, and there's hella space for them to go around, and they're like, sorry, and they shrink. And I'm like, what the fuck? Sorry, excuse me, what the bleep are you doing? Like, why are you apologizing for that? Or like, I don't know, they just apologize for everything. Sorry, I'm too loud. Sorry, I'm too this. Sorry, I look like this. Sorry. Stop apologizing for existing the way you do. You're being authentic, are you not? And if you're not, then that's a conversation you need to have with yourself. But stop apologizing, especially around men. And so back to, you know, what I was saying with my sister, where she feels like she had been honestly having issues with this man since she got the job offer, and she kept wanting to like speak up about certain things, ask for her needs to be met, really, because they were taking her out of one job position and putting her in this new one, having her relocate and everything. And so she's asking me, like, you know, what should I say, blah, blah, blah. So I give her some advice, and then she reads to me the text message or the email or something, and it just has this complete apologetic undertone to it. And I'm like, why does your voice sound like that? Like, I can hear your voice, not only because you're my sister, but like putting myself in the mind of your boss, I'm getting all this like apologetic energy, and I don't understand why that's there. You have the upper hand in this situation. They want you here to do this job because they understand that you're qualified, overqualified probably, to do it. You know, they want you to move to a completely different state where the cost of living is significantly higher. They want you here. They need you more than you need them. So leverage that and stop apologizing for asking what you need. And so, you know, and this is something like I'm always constantly having to tell the women that I talk to who are apologizing to me for whatever random thing, stop doing that. You're not in trouble. I'm not mad at you. Like, I don't know what you're apologizing for. We're literally just talking, you know, like we're here, we're existing, we're living our lives. So that, I'd say, would be my advice to any woman working in any kind of industry, but specifically any kind of male-dominated industry. Men are stupid and they really don't care. So stop apologizing. That is all. Mic drop.
Thank you. Cynthia Greenwood?
Yes, no, I do agree. I do agree what everyone's saying. And once again, it's conditioning. It's what we've been conditioned to do. We've been conditioned to, you know, the male is higher than the female, and this is what obviously needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. I've done it myself. I've just come out of a 17-year marriage. And for 10 years, we had been separated for 10 years, and yet we still lived in the same house. And towards the end of me leaving that, it was, oh, well, I can't leave because I had to make sure he was okay. No, I had to make sure I was okay. So it took me a massive, like, I'm not even going to say slap in the face, a punch in the face, to go, no, Cynthia, you've got this, you can do this, you put yourself first. Over the years, we've just been conditioned. The male is, you know, more important than the female. I'm still on my journey. I'm still learning. I was able to, you know, remove myself from that, because once again, we get into this comfort zone. And I know I keep on, once again, going back to what Cynthia said, it's development, it's personal development. You have to develop yourself. And going back to, I think Rebecca said, conditioning your mind and changing your mind. It's all about self-belief as well. It's really, really important to us females that, you know, I always say that we are the strongest species out there. You know, these things that we go through periods, we go through childbirth, you know, we can hold down a family, we can run a business. And once again, going back to what I said, is confidence as well. It is all built down to confidence. And going back to what I'm saying is, it starts off from when we're kids. It starts off, you know, from bringing our, you know, children, especially girls, into believing that they can do it. So for any woman working in a predominantly, you know, male environment, we've got this. We have got this wholeheartedly. We can do this because, you know, although there is fathers out there that do and have to bring up their kids, you know, by themselves, we've already got it on lock. So, you know, just do it because we've got it. That's my message.
Thank you very much. 1 point you want to leave the audience with. 1 point. It doesn't matter what point, just 1 point. Rebecca.
Just to remember to lift each other up a little bit. You know, we talked a lot about where we are and where we stand and all of that, but it's not just the men who hold us down, right? It's women also gain this competition and have been very catty, you know, all of those things, and get cliquey and can be mean. But at the end of the day, like, we're here for each other. And if we can reach out and hold each other up, we all win. And so mentor and help and be there and be a shoulder to cry on, because I think ultimately that's what changes the world. You know, that little bit that we each do can make that big change.
Thank you. Thank you. Cynthia?
I would say the same. And in addition, I would say just to, you know, understand who you are and be confident and passionate about projecting that in the world.
Thank you. Sorry, Margaret.
Go, Margaret. Come on, sis.
The final words I'd like to leave. I agree with everything that everyone has said so far, but I also believe that you have to take care of yourself. You know, I think that we're so busy taking care of everybody else and being mentors, and you know, we sometimes forget that we need some time to ourselves. We need some time to just be still. And so take that time to do that.
Thank you. Alma?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so far. And I feel like everyone has spoken extremely well. To the audience, I want to believe that they're probably both male, female audience. I would just want to tell everyone that just continue to tell and show like all the women in your life that you genuinely care. Women are strong, women are beautiful, women are unique. And like we said here, when women are happy, the entire world is happy. So just keep showing women that you care and everything will be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Greenwood?
My message is we've got this. We've got this. We've got this and we've done this.
Thank you, Ajay.
My message is a repeat from what I said earlier. If everybody does a little, then nobody has to do a lot. So whether that comes to self-awareness and exploration, or that comes to building a business or running a household, or literally just taking life one day at a time, if everybody does just a little, then nobody has to do a lot, and we can go way far together.
Thank you. That's so true. Crystal, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I think for me, it's that when you wake up is your morning. So for everything we've learned this today, it will be important for you to just begin to do the things. So if you see yourself that you've not started at all, now is the best time to start. And if you've also started, then now is the time to continue. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. And my message is be unique, be bold, be brave, be positively blatant. It's like when I first made that statement and I said to my student, be blatant, they said, Miss, you know, blatant could also be rude and obnoxious. I said, oh yes, let's change that. Be positively blatant. Thank you, guys. It's been fantastic session. Oh my goodness. When women get together, the energy is powerful. Thank you guys for accepting to come onto the platform. It's been a fantastic evening. I really, really enjoyed it. Well done, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Facebook audience. And you guys see me next week. I've got another show on Friday. Female, no. What is it called? Home education, where I interview women who home educate their children. On Saturday, I've got another show where I talk to female educators around the world what it's like going back into education in the physical field instead of being online. Next Wednesday is the final show for the, what is this? Oh my goodness, my mind's gone. International Women's Month. That's the final show next Wednesday, where I'll be looking at female educators who are actually various managers, etc., and what some of the challenges they had to experience. Right. Anything else you guys want to say before I say goodbye to my audience?
Just thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, for organizing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you
to meet you
all.
all.